Hey guys, before we start today's video, I just want to tell you about a new microgreens course we have launched at the Freedom Farmers platform. It's called Start a Microgreens Business from Scratch. Now, this is the course I wish I would have built, but I stopped growing microgreens commercially a number of years ago and didn't stay in the game, but my good friend Jonah has, and he runs a very impressive large-scale microgreens operation in Toronto, Canada. And they do $700,000 a year in annual revenue. I know that number sounds crazy, but it's true. And this farm is the real deal. So we've built a course with Jonah, taking you from beginning to end result. This is a massive amount of information covering everything in great detail. And we focus on 4 crops that are the most profitable crops you can grow on a microgreens farm. Telling you, this course has everything. I'm gonna let the clip speak for itself. So we're gonna play this clip. Follow the links if you wanna check it out. Right now we have a sale on this course at half price until the end of this month. So at the end of the month, it's gonna go back up to where it was. So you can get it for half if you sign up before May 30th, 31st at midnight. So check out this trailer and then we'll get into the video.
Did you know that just one rack of microgreens generates $500 every week? My name is Jonah and I've been growing microgreens for over 10 years. I currently operate Living Earth Farm, which grows up to 1,500 trays per week in a 5,000 square foot facility. I want to invite you to my free microgreens training where I show you exactly how to get started with one rack so you can generate $2,000 a month from home, just by growing 4 basic beginner-friendly varieties. I'll never forget my first attempt at growing sunflower. It wasn't a pretty sight, but I didn't care. I was hooked, and now my farm brings in $700,000 per year. In this free training, I break down everything you need to know to hit the ground running from scratch, from the exact equipment you need, to the easiest varieties to grow, to generating repeat customers using my grow-to-order model. It's all there for you. Sign up for the free training, and I'll walk you through all the steps. Click below to register.
May 6th, 4 p.m. It is about 10 degrees Celsius and raining, which is good. It feels like spring should. So we're finally out of our, well, I don't think we're out of it. It's still cold for spring this time typically, but we're out of the below freezing at nighttime. And things have been really greening up everywhere. Lots of rain, which is good. Grass is growing. It's healing back from all the scarification I've done. And this is your weekly update. Today we'll kind of go around and look at the various things we've worked on the homestead this week. So let's get into it. All right, so we're in here at the house site, and we did a big pour on Monday, and we poured the rest of this. Well, I shouldn't do that, but this is solid concrete now. And so we're bringing our grade up to about here, and then we'll have a 3-inch slab on top of that. And then so we still have quite a bit of material to build up here. And then, but we will do that while we are starting to build out more of the ICF walls here. If you come in here, you can kind of see what it's going to look like from here on. So now we're going to build this up. These are 1 foot. So this is 1. We've got 9 to go, or 9 in total. And then that's the height of my ground level floor, and then we'll have our floor on top of that. Over here at the chicken coop, they're growing fast. We've got our chicken area with our electric fence, and there's 2 successions of chickens here. There's one that are about, these guys here I think are about 2.5 months old, and then the other ones here are about 1.5 months old. We've got another batch in the greenhouse, we've showed it in videos, that are about 3 weeks behind. So we've kind of 3 successions of birds here. And it's been really good with this wet weather because it's incentivizing them to dig around in the ground, because we're trying to get them eating the land, eating bugs, stuff on this land, pooping everywhere, and less feed. So that's the kind of process we're in right now with them. But they seem to be sorting themselves out as they do with their hierarchy. The sort of top rooster which I think is one of these guys, is sort of emerging and is pushing people around. And one of them is very aggressive to us when we come in there, so he might be the first one we eat. We'll see. But yeah, right now our plan with these guys is they're kind of here for a little while, but we're thinking about making a smaller coop that's basically just a box on the ground that a lot of people would call it a chicken tractor for pastured poultry, and they'd have wheels on the bottom, and one guy could just move it. We don't have any flat land, so we got to make a two-man thing where you lift it up like an emperor's chair and you just move it to the next spot. And so our plan is going to be to herd the chickens around different areas on the land throughout the season, following a sort of a high density, short duration, long recovery type strategy, holistic land management strategy. And yeah, so that's what's going on with the chickens. And I'm actually been surprised. We've had a hawk that comes around at about 11 a.m. but he hasn't made a move yet. And so I'm hoping to actually find a guard goose or something like that, but maybe one of these roosters might do the job too, but to protect the flock from a predator bird, but we'll see. We're up in where the first terrace of the garden is, and we've now collected all the stumps, the firewood that was harvested around here and piled up here. And now we've built these sort of firewood skids, basically, that hold quite a bit. And so my plan is to come down with the skid steer, move this all out of here, and we're going to go look at a place. We'll just kind of make our way up there. And a place where all this is going to go. And right now I'm working on it with the machine, and I'm kind of terracing it out just to make it a little bit more easy to drive in and out with the skid steer, make it a bit flat so that I can stack these. My plan is to hopefully have one stack on another, so you can have two high. And then I'll be able to concentrate quite a bit of firewood in a small area while giving it lots of space to air dry, or to season, if you will. And once I have my boiler area set up, my boiler will have an area about 2 of these big, and then a boiler over here. And so what I'll be able to do is just go grab firewood with the skid steer, bring it to the boiler room, and then unload it for a month or however much time that wood will be. That's my plan, so that I don't have to constantly handle firewood. So I've done a full year of heating our home with firewood now, and you really see how much work it is. And that work's not necessarily a bad thing. They say firewood heats you 3 times, but it might actually even heat you 7 times when you think about, especially if you're harvesting your own firewood, which we are. So all the firewood that we're going to be burning for a very long time is going to come from our property here. We have a massive abundance of dead wood, but also trees that, mostly from the start, trees that I harvested to clear areas. But in our forest, we have, I think, a lifetime of just dried up, seasoned dead wood in there that we can burn. So I wanted to come up with a strategy that made it so we did the minimum amount of handling. And so what the strategy will be is, wherever we're harvesting firewood on the land, we have 40 acres here, so there's a lot of places to get wood. And the great thing about my property is that my driveway kind of zigzags up it, so it actually covers a lot of area on the property, meaning that I have a lot of access, in that I can go into the bush, I could drive a machine down on the driveway to a spot, and then go in the bush maybe 100 feet, 200 feet, cut some logs. I can bring those to the road, and once they're on the road, then it's easy to just get them back up to wherever to be processed. But what we'll most likely do is, I have a number of switchbacks on my road where we could pull logs to, and then right in that spot, before hauling the logs any further on the property, they would get bucked up there. Sometimes they can get bucked up in the bush too, but generally it's easier to pull the log out. But sometimes you can't. Maybe there's a logistical reason that you can't get to it to pull out. But if you can, you pull it out, and then bucket up, load it onto these skids, and then these skids get loaded right to where they are going to get stored before they get burned. So essentially, I only have to handle them. We cut down the tree, pull the tree to the road, cut it up there, load them onto the skids. That's one handling, technically, of each piece of firewood. Then the machine does the rest, and then I only have to handle them one more time to go into the boiler. So that's 2 times. So my firewood process prior to that, if it was getting material, would be cutting up the firewood, handling it into the truck, goes in the back of the truck drives up to my firewood shack. I unload it in the firewood shack, so that's handling it twice. Then, so from there, I might chop it or I might chop it before, but it's still the same amount of handling. So let's say I loaded it in, then I go to split it, then I load it again. So now what am I, 3 or 4 times already? Then I go grab the firewood to burn it. So I handled it probably 5 times. So doing this strategy is going to take that down to 2 times, which is quite a significant amount of labor saving when you think about just multiplying these tasks over and over again. So right now we're hardening off a lot of the plants. Not for the reason that they're going to get planted right away, but for the reason that I need to slow them down. Our tomatoes are getting a little lanky, and oops, that's a good example, this one. So what we've done is we've spaced out the plugs to give them more room so that they can do some growing that's not in their height, and they'll thicken up a bit because they're a bit lanky, and we don't have anywhere to plant them yet. So we've been bringing them out during the day, all day, and then bringing them in at nighttime. Same goes for all the perennial stuff here, except we're not bringing it in. All this stuff here is I'm just bringing it out because it's ready now. I've actually brought the peaches in once because I thought we were going to get freezing, but we haven't had freezing yet. So, and I don't think we'll get it again. These are hascaps, honeyberry, they're also known as. These are different varieties of currants. These are a lot of raspberries. This is all raspberry, even these canes. About 3 or 4 different varieties: golden, everbearing, some June berries. This is my goji berry plant that this is actually 3 goji berry plants that I pulled from my house in Kelowna. This is a sea buckthorn berry that I pulled from that same house in the food forest in the backyard. And this is 3 thornless blackberry plants that I pulled from my house in Kelowna. These are all apples that were just going to be used as a base stock to graft onto. Some more sea buckthorns, bunch of cherry trees, and more apple trees. These are Aurora and Gala apple. And so those are all going to get planted in and around here. Some of them are going to go up here in this area, and then some of them are going to go down by the chickens. It'll probably be that the trees will go down where the chickens are more commonly because the chickens won't pick at the bottom of them because they're up high. So they'll be better off. Whereas if I put some of these low bushes down there right now, the chickens might chew on them a bit. I'm standing inside of the cool tunnel, and we've really begun on this thing. Since you guys would have last seen it, there was no concrete. It was just, we had a form, but so we poured this on Monday, and now we've got our footing. Now we're gonna build our wall on top, which is what we've begun to do here. So this is the first half of the front wall, which is 2 feet high. and it's going to turn. So this is all concrete here, 2 feet here. There's a door here, a 3-foot door. And then it goes back to 2 feet here, and then it comes up to 4 feet. So those forms over there, that's what we're going to use to go along the back wall. We're going to have to split them in half and fix them up a bit, but we used those forms on the inside of the Passive Solar greenhouse to form the retaining wall that's inside the greenhouse, and it looks cool because it's all rough sawn fir. And so that when we have this wall in here that's 4 feet high, it's going to look really cool. You're going to see the boards of fir in it. And so, yeah, we've begun in here. We've laid down a nice base layer of sand to give us a flat working surface, whereas before it was kind of gnarly because it's rock and all over the place. So now we've got a nice slab base, if you will. And so the next step that's going to happen is, well, we've got probably a couple more days of work on this form. And then mid next week, we should be able to pour this concrete. It's about 6 cubic meters. And once that's poured, we'll strip off all the forms. And then right then, we'll put the garden beds in and finish that immediately. And we'll do that before we put the bows and the poly up, because it'll be way easier to bring the beds in and all that, because we can just use the mini excavator to lift them up with a sling and just hang them in and drop them in. So we're just going to, once we're done the foundation, then we can plant. And essentially what we'll do is we'll do a ton of work in one day. Or not in one day, but before we get the plastic up, we'll have to bring, so there's one other step before the garden beds actually. So on this sand, right on this level, we're going to be putting down a 6-inch by 6-inch steel welded mesh, which is on the ground, which is what's used in slabs. But all we're going to use it for is to tie our 1/2-inch thermal PEX, not thermal PEX, but our 1/2-inch PEX that's going to run a hydronic radiant floor line. So we'll loop that all up and down here on the mesh. Then we're going to pile another 10 inches of sand on top. It's about 13 cubic yards. Yeah, 13 cubic yards of sand is going to come in here to get it about 2 inches above this footing. That'll get packed down as we go as well. Nice hard surface. And then from there, the garden beds will sit right on top of that sand, just like in the Passive Solar greenhouse, with 2 feet of soil. Okay, one thing I want to show you guys on this is this is how our steel bows are going to be mounted into this concrete. So I've built a little prototype jig here. It is a 16-inch piece of 1 3/8 top rail steel. So it's going to fit inside, and this is the width of our bow, which is a 1 5/8 steel. And it's going to slide over top of that. And this is how we're going to mount these into the concrete. Because when we pour this form, there's going to be it's an 8-inch wall. You can see our ties here. So wall is up to here. And then we'll finish that when we pour this concrete. At every bow, which I've got them spaced at about 49 3/4 inches, not 48, because I had to do that to get it perfect with the foundation. So they'll be spaced almost 4 feet apart. And each of these will be on both sides to take the bow over, but the back wall one will be at a slightly different angle. And so this actually isn't necessarily the correct angle. This is just a prototype because I wanted to figure out how we're going to mount these, and so they stay and set in the concrete, and then they're formed into the concrete. So what I've done is I've drilled a hole through, cut a 6-inch piece of ready rod, and just threaded it through. I didn't even need any nuts to hold it in place. And so the concrete's going to form around that, and that T is going to lock this post into the concrete and never be able to be pulled out. And I've just taken 2 pieces of dunnage, essentially, and set them like this to adjust this angle. So you can see that I've got this on a little bit of an angle. 2 1/8-inch screws drilled through it, and then 2 2.5-inch screws just to mount it. And then once the concrete's all set, I can take all this stuff off And then this steel will be just set there in the concrete, and then it'll be ready to receive our bow. And then when our bow goes on, and I might make these actually longer than 16 inches. I think I have enough material to make them 2 feet. And then they'll be even maybe 1.5 feet, so they can be 1 foot to 1.5 feet out of the concrete. And then the sleeve goes over top, and then there'll be 2 bolts in the sleeve, so that, because it does wobble on there a little bit. And that's okay, because once we put our purlin in, or our ridge pole in on the greenhouse and cinch everything down, it's not going to wobble around. But just to get it really solid so it doesn't move at all, there'll be 2 bolts in there, carriage bolts with nylock nuts on the outside, and that'll happen on the other side as well. And then that's how our bows will be mounted on this greenhouse. So the next thing I want to show you guys is a solution for soil. So I've talked about in many of my vlogs over the whole season this far, the whole year this far, and one of my biggest challenges up here, access is my biggest challenge, but another challenge I have is the rock, and it's rocky. So I have a solution for that. I've got a soil screen being built. I was supposed to get it this week. I didn't, but that's okay. I didn't need it this week anyways, but I'll get it next week. So that's one solution I have to create soil from all my rocky material. But even with that, it's still work. I have a hard time getting soil. So I could just truck in soil, but trucking in here is expensive, and truckers don't like my driveway. And so what I've discovered is I'm discovering more and more places that I actually have soil on my property closer to where I need it. So before I found this new deposit I'm going to show you, I had a deposit as the crow flies probably 500 feet down the hill, but it's on probably 1/2 kilometer of driveway because the driveway zigs and zigzags. And so for me to get that soil from my mini excavator, to grab it off this driveway draw and put it in my skid steer and then drive my skid steer up one load at a time, would take a lot of time to get the soil I need to fill these beds in here, as well as the beds on the terrace that have yet to be built. We're over behind one of the solar panels, and I've got this area that's sort of level, not level, but I'm making it more level. This is where I'm going to move all that firewood, where it's away from this, kind of along the fence, but also at least 50 feet off the tree line. And that's where I'm going to stockpile the firewood. So I've come in here with the machine, and I'm just grading it out a little bit so it's flatter. I don't know if I need to make it exactly level, but I just want to make it easier to drive a skid steer on that isn't as, that bounces around. So I wanted to get it a bit more level. So we're going to store all that firewood here. And these are the garden beds that are going to go in the cool house. They're the same as the ones in the passive solar greenhouse. And so we'll move those in. We'll put a couple slings on them, and we'll just lift them up with the mini excavator, and then one guy will just kind of walk along with it, and we'll just drag them over there and drop them right in. So that is basically our weekly update. That's kind of what's going on right now. Really excited to be taking a break from the construction. It's much needed, and we should see a lot of progress this week on the gardens and the greenhouse. So this coming week, I should say. And a lot of that soil that's over there that we just looked at, that's also going to go, if I have enough, onto the first terrace, and we're just going to start laying it out. So we'll see if we get to that this week. My main objective for the coming week, I should say, is to get the beds in that the cool tunnel planted. So we'll see. It's, when you pour concrete and stripping forms, concrete takes a lot of time. It really does. But the one real advantage, or there's a number of advantages I'm going to have with this greenhouse that I also have with my passive solar greenhouse, but I won't have with other polytunnels, is I'll have another greenhouse that is incredibly wind resistant. We get windy up here. We also get a lot of snow. So it's a greenhouse that is, I wouldn't want to say impervious to the weather, pretty close and can handle really cold temperatures and is a good amount of space to grow in. It'll also have electricity and water in it year round. So it's a really critical piece of infrastructure that I'm prioritizing. I prioritize my passive solar greenhouse first because that's a nursery, that's connected to a semi-living space, my office, the garage, it's a hub. That was number one. This other one is kind of number two. And then from here, we'll be doing caterpillar tunnels in the field once we get those terraces prepped, which there's still a lot of work to do there. So if you guys like this vlog and you want to see more of this kind of stuff, head over to fromthefield.tv right now. We just launched a new microgreens course. I thought I'd just mention it in this video. It is with a gentleman named Jonah Kroc-Malnick, and I've done videos with him in the past. He has an incredible high-tech microgreens farm in Toronto called Living Earth Farms, and they do $700,000 a year in sales of microgreens. It's a very impressive operation. We just launched his course. Right now, it's half price till the end of this month. So I'll make sure there's a link or somewhere to take you to that if you're interested. But we've basically built a new microgreens course. So I'd built a microgreens course years ago, but things change, industry updates, you know, the economy has changed. So we built a new course with Jonah because I'm not doing microgreens commercially anymore. So Jonah is teaching you guys the whole thing from production, marketing, everything. The level of detail in this course is absolutely incredible. So if you guys are thinking about getting into microgreens, go and check it out. There'll be a link somewhere here. So yeah, if you want to see my other vlogs or my main vlogs, it's fromthefield.tv. If you guys like this video here on YouTube, let me know by getting me a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and share it with your friends. All right, we'll see you in the next one.